I still can't believe my own son, the boy I raised, the one I sacrificed everything for, tried to have me committed to steal my home. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. It helps me to know that there are others out there, listening, understanding, perhaps even enduring their own silent battles. For 63 years, I had built a life, a good life, rooted in hard work, love, and a deep sense of family. My name is Maggie Cooper, and until very recently, my world revolved around my late husband, Robert, and our son, David. Robert was my rock, a kind, steady man who built our home with his own hands, literally from the ground up. He was an architect, and our primary residence, a beautiful colonial nestled on a tree-lined street, was his masterpiece. But it was our beach house, a quaint cottage overlooking the ocean, where he proposed to me, where David took his first steps on the sand, and where we spent every summer creating memories that held the deepest part of my heart. After Robert passed 5 years ago, that beach house became my sanctuary, a place where I felt his presence, a tangible connection to our shared life. I worked as a librarian for 30 years, and while it wasn't a glamorous job, it was steady, fulfilling, and allowed me to contribute to our family's financial stability. Robert had been an astute investor, and between his pension, my savings, and his portfolio, I was comfortable. More than comfortable, I was secure, with enough to enjoy my retirement and leave a substantial legacy for David. David, my only child, had always been a sweet boy, but perhaps a little too trusting, a little too easily swayed. As he grew into adulthood, he struggled with money, always wanting the latest gadgets, the flashiest cars, things he couldn't truly afford on his entry-level marketing salary. I helped him, of course, a little here, a little there, sometimes a lot more than a little. When he expressed a desire for more independence but couldn't afford a place of his own, I offered him a solution. He could live in the pool house behind my main home, rent-free, with the understanding that he would save money and learn to manage his finances. He agreed, of course, with a hug and a promise, but quickly moved in his girlfriend Jessica, a young woman I'd met only a few times. She was 28, vivacious, almost aggressively charming, and had an uncanny knack for making me feel both adored and subtly dismissed at the same time. David, who was 32, seemed completely besotted. Soon the pool house wasn't enough, and Jessica, with her persuasive arguments about David needing his own space away from his mother, convinced him they should move into my investment property on Maple Street. It was a lovely starter home, and I reluctantly agreed to let them live there rent-free, again, with the stipulation that they would save money. Foolish, I know, but a mother's heart often overrides her head. Then came the engagement. David called, bursting with excitement, to tell me he'd proposed to Jessica. The wedding was planned in a whirlwind, a lavish affair at the Riverside Country Club, paid for almost entirely by me. Because, as Jessica put it, David is still building his career, and we want this to be perfect for him, Maggie. I swallowed my reservations and shelled out the money, wanting my son to be happy. The reception was a blur of well-wishers, clinking champagne glasses, and a relentless string of platitudes. I found a quiet corner, trying to catch my breath amidst the celebration, when I heard it. A voice, familiar yet chillingly detached, drifted from a group of women near the floral display. It was Jessica, my new daughter-in-law, speaking to her maid of honor, completely unaware I was within earshot. "Oh, the beach house? That's the real prize, darling," Jessica purred, her voice dripping with an almost saccharine sweetness that made my stomach churn. "Maggie's getting on, you know. A bit forgetful. David and I have a plan. Give it 6 months, maybe a year tops. We'll have her declared mentally incompetent, and that house will be ours. It's prime real estate. Imagine the resale value. And David won't even need to work. Everything will be so much easier once she's out of the picture." The world tilted. My blood ran cold, a glacial wave sweeping through me, leaving me frozen, numb, yet acutely aware of every word, every nuance of her venomous tone. My own son, my David, was in on it. A plot to have me, his mother, declared mentally incompetent, to steal my beloved beach house, to deem me unfit, to discard me. It wasn't just the words, it was the casual cruelty, the dismissive wave of her hand as she spoke of my very existence, my future, as if I were merely an obstacle to be removed. The pain was physical, a sharp, searing agony in my chest. My breath caught, tears stung my eyes, but I swallowed them back. Not here, not now. I had to appear composed, normal. I forced a smile, toasted an imaginary guest, and slowly, deliberately, walked away, my legs feeling like lead. That night, sleep was impossible. The words echoed in my mind, a relentless, horrifying loop. Mentally incompetent, out of the picture, the real prize. And David, how could David be part of this? I recalled how Jessica had gradually insinuated herself into every aspect of his life. First, moving into the pool house, then the Maple Street investment property, all rent-free. Then, she took over his finances, managing his bank accounts, helping him budget. I'd noticed him pulling away from me, our weekly dinners becoming bi-weekly, then monthly, always an excuse, always Jessica by his side, a possessive hand on his arm, a patronizing smile aimed at me. He seemed thinner, paler, somehow dimmer than he used to be. I'd attributed it to the stresses of a new relationship, a young man finding his way. How wrong I was. This wasn't just greed. This was a calculated, insidious betrayal, a theft of my very autonomy, my dignity, orchestrated by the woman my son had just married, with his full complicity. As the initial shock wore off, a cold, hard resolve began to form within me. The hurt was still there, a deep, aching void. But beneath it, something else was stirring, a fierce, protective instinct. Not just for my assets, but for myself, my legacy, and perhaps even for the son who had lost his way. I wasn't some frail, old woman to be pushed aside. I was Maggie Cooper, and I was a fighter. They wanted a battle. They were about to get one, but not on their terms. The very next morning, my first call was to Thomas Hartwell, my family attorney for 15 years. Thomas was a man of quiet integrity, sharp as a tack, with a compassionate heart. He had handled Robert's estate with such grace, and I trusted him implicitly. I scheduled an urgent meeting, telling him only that it was a sensitive family matter. Sitting across from him in his mahogany-paneled office, I recounted every chilling detail, from Jessica's first appearance in David's life to the overheard conversation at the wedding. Thomas listened, his expression grave, his pen moving steadily as he took notes. When I finished, the silence in the room was heavy. "Maggie," he said, his voice low and firm, "this is serious. Attempting to have you declared incompetent, especially for financial gain, is a grave accusation, and if true, it's elder abuse and fraud. We need to act, and we need to act swiftly and discreetly." I nodded, my jaw set. "I want to sell everything, Thomas, the Maple Street property and the beach house, both of them, immediately. And I want to do it in a way that gives them no warning, no opportunity to interfere." Thomas looked at me, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. "The beach house, Maggie? Are you sure? That place holds so many memories for you." "Precisely," I said, my voice unwavering. "It holds memories, not just of Robert, but of everything they're trying to steal. If I hold on to it, it's a target. I want it gone, safe, the proceeds out of their reach. And I need you to initiate a comprehensive background check on Jessica Morrison. Every detail, her past, her employment history, her family, everything." Thomas nodded, a glint of respect in his eyes. "Consider it done. We'll list both properties with our most discreet real estate partners, emphasizing a quick, all-cash sale. The Maple Street house will go first, as it's the most immediate point of leverage. For the background check, I'll engage a reputable private investigator. This will all be confidential, Maggie. No one will know." Over the next few weeks, I transformed. The quiet, grieving widow was replaced by a methodical strategist. My home office, once a place for correspondence and bill paying, became a war room. I started a detailed spreadsheet, documenting every financial contribution I'd ever made to David, every loan, every rent-free month at Maple Street. I compiled copies of deeds, property titles, bank statements, and investment portfolio details, all proving my sole ownership and financial independence. I opened new bank accounts at a different institution, transferring substantial sums, and updated my will, removing David as the sole beneficiary and instead establishing a complex trust that would only disperse funds to him under very specific, controlled conditions, with Thomas as the trustee. I even set up discreet security cameras around my main home, a precaution I never imagined I'd need. I consulted with a specialist in elder law, discussing the intricacies of competency hearings and the legal safeguards in place. It was a painstaking, emotionally draining process, but each step fortified my resolve. Selling the beach house was agonizing. It felt like severing a limb, but I knew it was necessary to protect myself. Each document signed, each form filed, was a silent declaration of independence. Meanwhile, David and Jessica remained oblivious, continuing their lives in the Maple Street house. Jessica would call occasionally, always with that cloying sweetness, asking about my health, offering to help me with my bills, or suggesting I needed to simplify my life. Each call was a fresh insult, but I played along, feigning a little forgetfulness, a little vulnerability, just enough to keep them comfortable in their deception. I remember one call where she actually asked if I'd lost the deed to the beach house, suggesting she could help me find it, her voice laced with false concern. It was all I could do not to scream. Then came the first move. Thomas, true to his word, secured a quick, all-cash buyer for the Maple Street house. Within 3 weeks, the sale was finalized. I called David. "David, I have some news," I said, my voice steady, betraying none of the turmoil within. "The Maple Street house has been sold. The new owners take possession in 2 weeks. You and Jessica will need to vacate." There was a stunned silence on the other end. Then, David's voice, laced with disbelief. "Sold? Mom, what are you talking about? You can't just sell it. We live there. Where are we supposed to go?" "It's my property, David. I've always been clear about that. And you've been living there rent-free for almost 2 years, despite our agreement that you'd save money. Instead, I've seen your spending escalate. Luxury cars you can't afford. All while I'm still paying the property taxes and upkeep. I can no longer subsidize your lifestyle, especially when you've shown no initiative to take responsibility for your own finances. It's time for you to stand on your own 2 feet. The conversation quickly devolved into an argument, David's confusion giving way to anger. Jessica, no doubt listening in, grabbed the phone. "Maggie, what is wrong with you? This is completely out of line. You can't just throw your son out on the street." "I'm not throwing anyone out, Jessica," I replied calmly. "I'm selling my property, and I'm giving you ample notice. 2 weeks. You can use the pool house at my main residence for a temporary solution, but you will sign a lease, and you will pay rent. Market rate." Her silence was deafening. It was the first time I'd seen her truly flustered, her carefully constructed facade cracking. The call ended abruptly. I knew then that the game had begun in earnest. 2 days later, the intervention happened. I was enjoying my morning coffee on the porch when a large black SUV pulled into my driveway. Out stepped David, his face a mask of concern, followed by Jessica, looking strangely triumphant. Behind them were 2 strangers, a stern-faced man in a suit, carrying a medical bag, and a woman in a nurse's uniform. My heart pounded, but I was ready. Thomas had warned me this might be their next move, given Jessica's background in social services and mental health evaluations, which the background check was now revealing as a sinister pattern. "Mom," David began, his voice dripping with false empathy, "we're worried about you. You've been acting erratically, selling off properties without warning, talking strangely. We've brought Dr. Franklin here, he's a specialist, and Nurse Angela. They're here to help." Dr. Franklin, a man with cold, calculating eyes, introduced himself. "Mrs. Cooper, we've received reports of concerning behavior. We're here to conduct an evaluation." Jessica stepped forward, her smile thin and artificial. "It's for your own good, Maggie. You're not yourself. It's time for you to get the help you clearly need." My composure held. I offered them coffee, politely declined to let them search my home, and insisted on calling Thomas. Dr. Franklin hesitated, but I stood firm. "I always consult my attorney before any major decisions, doctor. It's a habit from my late husband's business. I'm sure you understand." Thomas instructed me to cooperate fully with the evaluation, but under no circumstances to sign anything without his review. The doctor and nurse then explained that due to David and Jessica's concerns and some fabricated evidence they presented, I was being placed on a 72-hour involuntary hold for observation at Serenity Springs Mental Health Facility. Stepping into Serenity Springs felt like walking into a sterile nightmare. It was clean, quiet, too quiet. My phone was confiscated. I was stripped of my personal belongings, my clothes replaced with a scratchy hospital gown. The indignity was immense, but I held onto my inner resolve. This was part of their plan, but it was also an opportunity. During the intake, I was assigned to Nurse Angela, the same nurse who had arrived at my home. She seemed different here, less rigid, a flicker of something human in her eyes. As she processed my paperwork, I subtly made eye contact, a silent plea. When she saw the legal documents I had insisted on keeping, copies of my will, the property deeds, and my financial statements, she paused. "These are important, Mrs. Cooper," she whispered, tucking them safely into a sealed envelope and placing them in my personal effects locker, noting it was to be accessed only by me or my legal counsel. A tiny ray of hope. Over the next 3 days, I played their game. I answered every question truthfully, calmly, and coherently. I participated in every test, every therapy session. I described my life, my work, my finances, my long-term plans, all with meticulous detail and impeccable logic. I asked pointed questions of the staff about protocols, patient rights, and legal processes. I even managed to engage Nurse Angela in conversation during quiet moments, learning more about the facility, its staff, and the procedures for release. She subtly confirmed my suspicions about Jessica, hinting at a, quote, pattern of unusual referrals from certain sources, and advising me to keep my head up and stick to the facts. She also mentioned a young doctor, Dr. Patricia Summers, who was assigned to my case and known for her thoroughness and adherence to ethical standards. I focused on her, ensuring every interaction showcased my clear mind. On the second day, Thomas came to visit, armed with a court order demanding my immediate release if deemed competent. He brought me updates. The background check on Jessica Morrison was complete, and it was devastating. Jessica, it turned out, wasn't just manipulative. She was a career criminal. Her real name was Jessica Wells, and she had a history of elder fraud convictions in Nevada under that name, and another, Jessica Martinez, in Florida. Her modus operandi was chillingly consistent: target wealthy older individuals, often through their adult children, ingratiate herself, isolate the victim, then orchestrate a competency hearing or financial takeover. Her past employment in social services and mental health evaluations was a lie. She had worked briefly as an administrative assistant in such places, gaining just enough knowledge to exploit the system. Worse, the engagement ring David had given her, the one I recognized as an antique, wasn't a family heirloom of hers. It was identified as belonging to Margaret Thornfield, an elderly woman in Nevada who had been defrauded by Jessica Wells years prior. Thomas also revealed a crucial connection. Jessica's half-brother was Detective Morrison, a law enforcement officer who had been quietly building a case against her for years, hoping to finally bring her to justice. He had been thrilled to hear from Thomas and was eager to collaborate. Armed with this irrefutable evidence, and with the full weight of my lawyer's intervention, Dr. Patricia Summers concluded her evaluation. She was a sharp, perceptive woman, and I could tell she saw right through Jessica's machinations. After reviewing my comprehensive responses, all my documentation that Nurse Angela had secured, and Thomas's legal arguments, she declared me fully competent. "Mrs. Cooper," she said, a hint of admiration in her voice, "there is no medical or psychological basis for you to be here. You are lucid, articulate, and entirely capable of managing your own affairs. You are free to go." As I walked out of Serenity Springs, retrieved my phone and the envelope of documents, I felt a surge of triumph, but also a deep weariness. They had tried to trap me, to steal my life, but I had outmaneuvered them. The beach house, I learned, had also sold, the proceeds safely deposited in my new, untraceable accounts. David and Jessica were now truly without a safety net, unaware of the storm that was about to break. I decided to set the final trap. I invited David and Jessica to dinner at my home to discuss recent events and clear the air, as I told David. He sounded relieved, eager to believe I was simply having a change of heart. Jessica, I knew, would be smug, believing she had won, that I was now under control. When they arrived, I greeted them with a calm, almost serene smile. The table was set beautifully, a home-cooked meal, just like old times. But this was not a reconciliation. As we sat down, there was a knock at the door. I had anticipated it. "Oh, that must be an old friend dropping by," I said casually, though my heart was pounding. I opened the door, and there stood Detective Morrison, a formidable man with a stern gaze, accompanied by another officer. Jessica's face, which had been beaming moments before, drained of all color. David looked bewildered. "Detective Morrison, welcome," I said, stepping aside. "Please, join us." We were just about to discuss Jessica's rather extensive history. David, looking from the detective to Jessica's now ashen face, stammered. "What's going on, Mom? Who is this?" "David," I began, my voice clear and steady. "Jessica isn't who you think she is. Her name isn't Jessica Morrison. It's Jessica Wells. Or sometimes, Jessica Martinez. She has a history, David, a history of targeting wealthy, elderly individuals, isolating their families, and then, just like she tried with me, having them declared incompetent to steal their assets." I pulled out the thick dossier Thomas had prepared, laying it on the table. "This, David, is a detailed account of your wife's criminal convictions for elder fraud in Nevada and Florida. These are police reports, victim statements. This," I said, pointing to a photograph, "is Margaret Thornfield, an elderly woman Jessica defrauded years ago. And this," I added, my voice dropping to a whisper as I looked directly at Jessica, "is her engagement ring, the one you're wearing right now. It belonged to Ms. Thornfield, a trophy from a previous conquest." Jessica exploded. "This is insane. Maggie, you're delusional. This is exactly why you need help. David, tell her." David, however, was silent, his gaze fixed on the dossier, then on the ring on Jessica's finger. The color had left his face. He looked sick. "Is this true, Jessica?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper broken. "The ring? Miss Thornfield?" Jessica tried to bluster, to deny, to pivot, but Detective Morrison stepped forward. "Jessica Wells, also known as Jessica Morrison and Jessica Martinez, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted elder abuse, and falsifying medical documentation, among other charges. We have a warrant. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." As the officers handcuffed Jessica, she turned to me, her eyes blazing with pure hatred. "You manipulative old woman. You'll regret this." I met her gaze, my own eyes cold and unwavering. "No, Jessica," I said softly. "I think you'll be the one doing the regretting." David sat there, shell-shocked, watching his wife being led away. When she was gone, he finally looked at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of shame, disbelief, and profound sorrow. "Mom," he choked out, I can't believe it. I didn't know. I swear." I looked at my son, the boy I loved more than life itself, who had enabled this woman to try and destroy me. The pain was still raw, but the resolve was stronger. "You didn't know, David? Or you didn't want to know? You were so eager to believe her, so quick to dismiss my concerns, to let her isolate you from me. You allowed her to live rent-free, to control your finances, to pull you into a scheme against your own mother. Your financial irresponsibility, your refusal to take charge of your own life, made you vulnerable to someone like her. You enabled her, David." He broke down then, sobbing, burying his face in his hands. It was the first genuine emotion I'd seen from him in years. "I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I was blind. I was so stupid." The path to reconciliation wouldn't be easy, but I saw a glimmer of hope in his shattered honesty. "Sorry isn't enough, David. You have a lot to atone for. You need to take responsibility for your actions, for your life. I've sold the properties. The money is safe, and it's staying with me. I won't be subsidizing you anymore. But I will support you, David, if you choose to truly rebuild your life. You need to find stable employment, therapy, and most importantly, you need to understand the true cost of allowing someone else to dictate your worth." 6 months have passed since that day. Jessica Wells, with her aliases and history of predatory schemes, was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. Justice, in her case, was swift and absolute. David, my son, is slowly, painfully rebuilding his life. He sought therapy, as I suggested, and found a steady job in a different field. He's living in a small, rented apartment now, managing his own finances, learning to stand on his own 2 feet for the first time in years. He calls me regularly, not for money, but to talk, to truly connect. The road to fully restoring our relationship is long, paved with the bricks of shattered trust and difficult conversations, but I see a glimmer of the son I raised, the one who was lost, now slowly finding his way back. I visit him, we have quiet dinners, and sometimes he even smiles. As for me, I sold my large colonial house. Too many memories, too much space. With the proceeds from both properties, I bought a beautiful, smaller beachfront condo, exactly what I'd always dreamed of. It's a peaceful retreat, bathed in sunlight, the sound of the ocean a constant, soothing presence. I wake up each morning, look out at the waves, and feel a sense of profound peace and liberation. I reclaimed my life, my autonomy, my dignity, and a strange thing has happened. My story, whispered through legal circles, made its way to others. Just last week, I received a call from a woman named Sarah Chen, whose elderly father was being targeted by a similar scheme. She had heard what I did, how I fought back. She needed advice, guidance. And as I spoke to her, sharing my experiences, explaining the legal steps, the importance of documenting everything, I realized I had found a new purpose. My pain, my battle, had not been in vain. It had forged me, tempered me, and now it was allowing me to help others protect themselves, their families, and their legacies. I am Maggie Cooper, and this is my story. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.